Hi everybody, Dr. Suneel Dhand, internal medicine physician. Welcome to another video. I, like a lot of people, have been following the US presidential election very closely, and we had a very interesting development on Friday. RFK Jr., Robert Kennedy, dropped out of the presidential race. He was running as a third-party candidate, and his polling wasn't insignificant, between 5 and 10%. And he has now left the race and he has endorsed President Trump. And the reason why I was so interested in what RFK was saying is that RFK is one of the few political figures in the United States who talks regularly about the metabolic health catastrophe facing the nation. In fact, catastrophe is not a large enough word because we are seeing hundreds of millions of adults and children being systemically poisoned. Yes, systemically poisoned by a toxic food environment. Things were very different a few decades ago. And I believe that this is the main issue facing the United States. And go figure, and barely any political figure in the United States, whether or not they're a presidential candidate, wants to talk about this issue. I mean, look at the first presidential debate. This didn't even come up. And I bet during the second presidential debate, it won't even be mentioned either. So God bless RFK for making this a central theme because it's so important and we can all see it all around us. I mean, it's not rocket science. Go to any Target, Walmart, or any shopping mall in the country and look at what the adults and children around you now look like. Things were very different 3 or 4 decades ago. In fact, in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Americans, if they went to Europe, they were widely regarded as the healthiest looking people in the room. Things are a far cry from that now. And I'm going to share with you a portion of RFK's speech. As he was dropping out of the presidential debate, I believe that this is one of the most significant 3 minutes uttered by any US politician in history. Take a listen.
Are we allowing this to happen to our children? These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering? I'll name 2 culprits. The first and the worst is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists who many of them formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, in our medicine, in our environment. Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors. America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen driven, and it now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults.
Did you all hear that? That is no exaggeration. If the United States continues down this path, it is simply unsustainable. It is going to bring the entire nation down. In fact, on Friday evening and on Saturday, I went online to see if the mainstream media was talking about this important part of RFK's speech. Of course they were not talking about it, not one mention. But they were very interested in calling RFK a conspiracy theorist. And I've actually been of the opinion for a long time that the US mainstream media is one of the most sinister forces in the world. And that experience on Friday and Saturday, when they didn't even mention this part of the speech, confirmed that in my mind. Because here was RFK giving one of the most important political speeches in history, advocating for a way out of the metabolic health disaster in adults and children. And you would think that the mainstream media would be interested in it. Literally the biggest issue facing the country, and they are not. And as for countries like China, Russia, and even North Korea, they may be anti-democratic, authoritarian, and not really role models to aspire to. But at least even the leadership and the media in those countries is invested in a healthy population. They don't want their populations to be weak and diseased. They have an interest in keeping their populations strong. But not here in America, where US leaders and the mainstream media would gladly throw their citizens under the bus of big business and big pharma if it meant making a buck. They literally do everything possible to disempower citizens and persuade people that being in poor health, being obese, being on medicines is okay. It's the norm. And I really do hope that there is a special place in hell reserved for people who willingly watch millions of their fellow citizens die a slow, painful death from preventable chronic diseases and excessive medications. So let's see what happens next. Will RFK enter government in some capacity and initiate change? I bet the authorities are very scared indeed about having someone who focuses on true health and well-being and root causes of illness be in charge. That's not what they want. They want to help big business, and they want to help big pharma, and they want as many people as possible in the medical industrial complex. We shall see what happens. I guess it depends on who wins the election. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the like button if you like this video and the bell button for more similar videos in the future. We will speak again very soon.